Hello and welcome to the course of UPSC 2019 GS Papers Analysis. We are first discussing GS Paper 1. Okay, the course is presented to you by Plus Pramesh E-Library, and this is something about the educator for this course. I am Supriya Singhal. You can read about me from here, and you can also directly message me on contact with me or connect with me on my Instagram blog by the name of Crispy Stories. Okay. So now we will start with the question number 12, which I gave you as a homework in the last class. So here we had to assess the role of British imperial power in complicating the process of transfer of power during 1940s. So what do we have to do? We have to assess, did they complicate or did they not? And hence your introduction will first introduce how yes, the British imperial power complicated the process of transfer of power during 1940s, and your body will be about this whole process. You will write about different events or how you think that they complicated the process, and in conclusion you will end suitably. So in this question again I'm telling you, either you can give like your points and then you can say this event happened, that event happened, or you can go event wise. Okay, remember the last question. Similarly, here also either you can go event wise, whatever happened in 1940s, starting from the point individual satyagrah, then you can talk about, so first you will go talk about August offer, then you will talk about individual satyagrah, then you will come to Cripps proposal, then you will come to Quit India movement, then you will come to Wavell's plan or Shimla conference. Okay, after that cabinet mission, and after that you will find basically Lord Mountbatten plan or 3rd June plan, and in the end India's independence. So these are the events that took place in 1940s, and these are in chronology, and if you write anything in chronology you ultimately get more marks. Why? Because chronology of events gives you an opportunity to tell the examiner that you know why are things happening and why are they happening one after other. Okay, that's why I'm telling you that either you can go event wise, or since you have to write how they complicated the transfer of power, so you can write whatever points you have or answers that you want to give, and then you can basically either write examples in the end, like for example in Quit India movement they did this, in Cripps mission they did this, or also you can basically whenever you're writing an argument you can support it with the particular event. Okay, these are the two ways of answering a question. I will prefer to go by this way, but I'm giving you an opportunity to even write in this way, since the point is ki if I write in this way where I'm writing of why they complicated the process or how did they complicate. For example, they did not know whether they wanted to give India dominion status or they wanted to provide India independence, and then example, then suppose they did not they wanted to actually make India responsible, extend responsible government to India, but also did not want to devolute their powers. So then an example. Okay, then how they wanted India support for basically fighting a world war, and they knew that they had to offer Indians something in return, but they were not ready to give it. So I can write these instances and then support them via example. But this method becomes really tedious, because point is that you will run out of the points, but you will have still events remaining. So hence I suggest that please go by event method. But if you are really good, if you have history options and you can remember points, you can even write in this way. There is no right and wrong answer, there is just an answer which suits you the best and where you can show your capabilities. So we will go event wise. So introduction, what we'll write, in introduction we will write that how 1940s, or you can write years after 1940s became or specifically important for India's independence, because here a series of events took place. Okay, wherein you can say a complete confusion can be seen in the Britishers approach of basically in granting India freedom or not. So you have sort of introduced the question and you have said that you know that Britishers are confused, and you are writing it down. Now in the body what you will do is you will write the events that actually elaborate the same. So whatever you've written in introduction, now you're just giving them events that elaborate the same, and then you start event by event. So what is the first event? First is the basically August offer. So August offer was given, okay, after basically the Congress resigned, or Congress ministries resigned from their post or 1937 elections. Remember that these elections took place and that Congress ministry ruled for about 28 months, and after that when they heard that India has been included in the World War II without even its permission. They resigned. They actually refused to cooperate with the government. So that is when the government came up with August offer, and they said that okay, fine, we want your support, that India should be supporting Britishers in the World War, but in lieu of that, like in the support that you are giving us, we will actually give you Dominion status. Okay, so now here what you will write is that in August offer, basically after the Congress ministries resigned and the Britishers or the British government wanted India support, they were wanting to give Dominion status, but okay, they did not accept the demands like that India Pura, that whole Viceroy Executive Council will be Indians, etc. And there was no talk about constitution. Okay, so thus you can say that themselves confused as to how will they give India Dominion status when they are not ready to even divulge or devolute even one power. Okay, then second you will find after August offer, what did they give was Cripps proposal. Okay, then in Cripps proposal what you will write? You'll write first of all it was given in 1942 to basically get the support of Indians towards the Britishers for the World War II. Okay, and here also they again reiterated their demand of Dominion status, but also said okay that a constituent assembly will be made after the war, a constitution will be made. So here also what you're doing is you are actually confusing Indians whether what do you want to do. If you're only giving us Dominion status, then why are you talking about constitution? Because constitution cannot be of a country which is under somebody else, right? Constitution is ours, so we will make it, but you are not giving us that power. You're not giving us the power of making constitution, but you're telling us okay fine, after the war you can make a constitution. But how will we make a constitution if you're not giving us the independence, if you're not actually giving us the powers? So this is the confusion. On one side they want to give you, on the other side they do not want to give you, like they're confused as to what to do. Okay, then third you write about Quit India movement. Okay, and write how in Quit India movement they actually made the they made the whole movement leaderless by arresting all the important leaders. And then what happened, they thought that this will actually let the movement die, but the movement became more furious because students etc started participating, and here you can find that lot of revolutionary activities also took place. And somewhat when the Britishers were hoping the movement will die because there is no leader, actually movement continued leaderless. Okay, and that is when they again got confused as to what should we do. They thought that Indians are basically dependent on leaders, but they did not knew that our masses have been empowered by now. Our masses, by participating in all these struggles that have been happening, for example Swaraj movement, for example non-cooperation, for example civil disobedience movement, they have now become empowered. They know exactly what to do, and that is why you will find that this created much more confusion in the minds of Britishers as to what should they do, because now what is happening, they are fearing that Japan might enter India and they might actually lose out their Indian territory to Japan. Okay, then after Quit India movement came the fourth event, which was Wavell's Plan or Shimla Conference. Okay, so here you will realize by this time obviously the World War II has ended, and in 1945 Japan has surrendered because of the nuclear bombs thrown at Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Okay, now what is happening, the Sir Wavell has become the viceroy and he is organizing a conference in Shimla which is called as the Shimla Conference, where he wants to discuss as what is the future of India, like how do the transfer of powers take place, because the Muslim League is like hell bent on getting a separate nation like Pakistan, but India is obviously not accepting it. So how do you actually mediate the entire crisis? So he organizes a conference, and there also he reiterates that how basically constitution, what you can say, you need to reach an agreement between the Muslim League as well as Congress so that any future can be decided. And here also he talks about okay fine, you can make a constitution, and constituent assembly will have like everybody Indian except from to like 2-3 posts. But here what this Wavell guy does is he basically assumes that Muslims are represented only by Muslim League, while Hindus are represented by Congress, and that is what was not accepted by Congress, because they said that there is no caste Hindu or caste Muslims, and Muslim League is not responsible for caste Muslims, and that is why Congress always had their member, okay, Congress member, Muslim Congress member, as the person who was negotiating, so that Congress could show that how Muslims are even in the Congress side. Okay, this is a history that I'm telling you, but in the answer you have to write that in the Wavell conference also, wherein they want to actually, they want to leave India united, but they have realized that Pakistan demands are actually increasing, and somewhere in this like whole situation, they have given a tacit like they have given silently an approval to Pakistan by saying that no other constitution, like no agreement will be made until Pakistan is satisfied, etc. So that is a little problem. Then you come to the fifth event. So this was the fourth event, Shimla conference, and then there is a fifth event, which is the cabinet mission plan. So in cabinet mission plan, you will write that they actually came up with a scheme of things wherein how will they transfer the power. They actually divided India also on the like 4 divisions, and they said how each of these groups can have their own constitution. And in those groupings, you will find there were Muslim majority population in the east, Muslim majority population or group of the west also. Okay, now what is the problem is that somewhere you are telling that they can have their own constitution, you can have your own constitution, and then in the end what you're doing is dividing India. But what they wanted to do was leave India united. They never wanted to leave India divided, because that is, see, British will always get this mark on their country that they were the one who led to the partition of India and Pakistan. Even though they did not want to do this, or even though they did not want to intend to do this, all they wanted to do was divide and rule. Okay, they wanted to just divide India so that they can rule over India. But they did not know that these divisions will become so hell-bent, so inherent, that ultimately they will lead to the division of the country. Okay, so that is the problem. And then comes the last, is the Mountbatten plan. So Mountbatten, basically you can say he was like this last nail in the coffin, who was sent by the Britishers to actually just sort everything out, because now Britishers, the Prime Minister has changed. Now the Prime Minister is Clement Attlee, who is basically from the Labour Party. He is like, okay, we have to leave India. He's given the deadline also, July 1948, we have to leave India. And now he has changed the Governor General. He called Wavell and he sent basically Mountbatten to solve these issues. Now Mountbatten came with this beautiful plan called as 3rd June plan or Mountbatten plan, wherein he said, okay, we have to divide India. Independence without partition is something which is not seen as a possibility. Okay, and he basically gave 2-3 pointers. He said any territory which can either join India, they can join Pakistan, or they can remain independent. And this independent clause was which was fighted by the British. They said that how can you ask a territory to remain independent, because if suppose a small territory becomes independent, then this is like a India. In between, like some territory is there which is like, no, I'll remain independent, I'll not be a part of India or Pakistan. Then how will you manage? Because India will finally get divided into, there were 562 princely states. Now imagine all of them saying that we remain independent. So 562 states of India, okay, like small divisions of India. So that is why you can say there was so much of confusion as to what they wanted to do. Did they want to, like, confusion over first thing, whether they wanted to transfer power or not. Second thing, how did they want to transfer power to India or to basically 2 different entities of India and Pakistan. Then third, do they want to take the blame of this partition on themselves or not. Then fourth, whether they want Muslims to be only represented by Muslim League, or they wanted Muslims voice from in Congress also coming. So they were not one issue. Okay, and then lastly, obviously they wanted India to participate in the war, but in what capacity also they were deciding. They were not letting India decide it. So there are so many issues wherein you can see the transfer of power has now become complicated, because on one side they want to transfer power, but on this other side they do not want to transfer power. And this struggle has to come out through your answer, because you need to show them that yes, you have assessed the role. So you can say that yes, British imperial power complicated this entire process. If they were very clear from the start that they will transfer power, there would have been no quit India movement. Then secondly, if they were clear from the present that now is the time that responsible government should be formed, then obviously why will Gandhiji organize individual satyagrah, right? Then Gandhiji called Cliff's proposal as a post-dated check of a crashing bank. And if you can write this line and underline it also, now I'm telling you, you'll get 1 more mark, because nobody is going to write it. We all remember these lines when we are studying history or when we are studying prelims. When the time comes from mains, I don't know what happens. What happens that people actually forget, like these important lines. These important lines are important for mains, not for prelims. So please remember them. Okay, so this is how your struggle of the question will come out, and then in the end you will conclude, yes, that British imperial power complicated the process, but in the end we saw finally India became independent. So this is how you actually took the question, you solved it, and finally you ended it on a positive note. Okay, even though, but basically what you're trying to say, that even though Britishers were complicating the process, India was hell bent on independence, and finally we achieved it. So that is why I said, please write in the end that finally India achieved independence in 1947. In this way, you show the struggle, you show what they wanted to do. They were actually complicating it, but India did this. Okay, and this is your complete answer. Now we'll go to question number 19. Okay, this is about the continued challenges of women in India against the time and space. See, what generally the model is followed for GS papers discussion is that what they do is they divide the GS papers into Indian society, Indian geography, Indian history, art and culture, and then what they do is they club like papers from 2016 to 2019, take all the questions, put it in this art and culture section, and start solving and discussing it. The point is, this kind of discussion is beneficial only when you do not want to understand the interlinkages of the subjects, because if you start doing your and solving your GS papers like this, in the end you will realize that when you're solving only art and culture, your mind is working very fast, because then you know that your mind only has to remember that one book, probably Nitin Singhania, that you learned about art and culture. So there you are able to remember. But once you start going GS paper wise, you will remember that switching from society to geography, geography to history, history to art and culture is actually difficult. And this is what you need to practice, because lot of times people are doing what, they are going subject wise, and in the end they actually are facing problems when they are solving papers. So that is why what you do is, you basically are solving GS papers, so you go at least solve two papers, 2019 and 2018, paper wise, like GS paper wise, instead irrespective of any section that they are talking about. Okay, so now the question is, what are the continued challenges for women in India against time and space? Now first of all, here three words are important. First is continued challenge, something that is not a challenge today but has been continuing from the past. Challenge for whom? Women. And then in which sphere do you want to talk about challenges? In time also and in space also. That means you can talk about time in the sense from ancient, you can go medieval, then you can go Mughal time, or sorry, medieval time, then you can go modern time, in which also pre-independence and independence and post-independence. Okay, this is how you can go time wise. And in space wise, you can talk about north versus south, urban versus rural. Okay, you can talk about basically mainland India versus northeast India. Okay, you can talk about tribal versus non-tribal. So this is how you will actually start thinking around the answer, that what do you mean by time, what do you mean by space. And then you have to talk about the challenges that women are facing in all these times, and then challenges of women facing in all these spaces. Okay, so it's not asking you whether it is true or not, because that is assumed that is true, and now it is asking you what are those challenges. So you don't have to answer about yes or not. So here again you will have an introduction, body and conclusion. And this question, see, question number 11 to question number 20 are all of 250 words and 15 marks. Okay, so here you get, as I told you, 3 pages, 1, 2 and 3. So here your content can get like much more clarity, and you can also make flowcharts and diagrams. Okay, now introduction, you will start writing that women, okay, although you can say constituting 50% of the population, they still continue facing challenges against time and space. And then in the body you start writing about those challenges. Okay, why have I not written anything very unique in the introduction? Because in introduction you need to set a parameter as to what are you going to write about. Okay, or you can also write that how women constitute 50%, but they have faced challenges in social, economic, political, educational, political, social, educational, economic fields, and they are starting from the past till the present. So in both time and space. So either you can expand what is written here, or you can just write one line. It's on you that how much introduction you want to write, but introduction you have to write this, that women are having a population like about 50%, but still, even though they are like sharing equal space with women, men in the numbers that they have, but still you will find number is not the strength here, because politically, economically, educationally, socially they are still backward. Okay, and now what you will write is the challenges. So in challenges, what you will do is, in time and space, see, either I'll give you two approaches to this question. Either you can divide the question and write here time and then write space. Okay, and then start writing pro challenges that women are facing. For example, you will write that how in South India, okay, women, you will find that education is not a challenge, but in North India education is still a challenge because literacy rates, okay, in North India are low. So if you see an average of the nation, literacy rate is around 73%, when women around 68%. Okay, this is the national average. In probably North India, I guess this will go around 60 or 62, but in South India this might go to 72%. So this is how a challenge for women that they are facing. Then similarly you will find that yeah, so this is like South India versus North India in one of the space matters. Now you will look at the time. So from time immemorial we have seen that the women are facing the challenge of dual burden of families. Like even if they go to work, they actually have to take care of the families, and this we have seen from the ancient times. Even when they were involved in agriculture, etc., they still had to take care of the families. So this challenge has not gone away, even though they have been empowered educationally, okay, or economically. They are earning for the family, but still they only have to take care of the family. So that's what I'm saying. Either you can go time and space wise, but in the exam when you only have 7 to 10 minutes to write an answer, I think this approach will only come to you when you have sociology as an optional, because then you talk about these issues in detail. But suppose if you do not have sociology as an optional, or you do not think that you can get so many points that you can divide them time and space wise, you all you do is basically you start writing combined challenges. So what you write is challenges faced by women in time and space. Okay, and here you write continued challenges. That means these challenges are from past. So first is basically female infanticide. We see that even after female infanticide and feticide, even after PCPNDT Act, okay, of 1995 getting established, even Supreme Court in one of its judgments said that in India female infanticide still remains a basically a problem. If you have read the economic survey, they talked about basically unwanted women and missing women. Okay, unwanted women were those which were created because of son meta preference, while missing women are those which were basically never born in the society because of the son preference. Now if you want me to discuss these little details, like do you know what is sun meta preference and sun preference? If you do not know, please write it in the comment box. We will take it in the next session whenever it happens. Okay, that what is difference between sun meta preference and sun preference, because these words are important to write. So now here what you'll write is female infanticides and feticides are visible by the number of missing women. So almost 63 million missing women are there in India. That means these women were actually, you can say, were never born in the society because society wanted more sons. They wanted boys, they did not want girls. Okay, so this is the continued problem from the past till present. Then the problem of female employment. So if you see, then you write that today female employment is only 24%. That means even if they contribute, they form 50% of your population, but they still are contributing only 24%, okay, in the employment scenario. And here also you can write that from the past, okay, basically females were thought of as entities which should be combined to home, and this mentality, this patriarchal mentality, has continued in time and space. You can find this employment opportunities are, they are not like even very high in South India. There also you will find that it's the same national average that is going. That means this has continued across time from ancient to present, and has continued across spaces also from North to South India. Okay, then you will talk about, so we have talked about employment, we have talked about female infanticide and feticide. Then you talk about basically the problem of violence. Violence against women. It can be domestic violence, sexual violence, it can be harassment, any form of violence. So you will find that you need to write about NCRB report and say that how NCRB, which is the National Crime Records Bureau, it says that how women, the crime against women, the violence against women, even the cases of extremities, for example rapes, have increased. Okay, and you will find that these cases have been increasing, not today, but they have been increasing from the time immemorial. Like starting from the time probably 1950s, you will find that the cases have increased over time. Okay, and over spaces also. You will find that crimes like rapes are happening not only in India, they're happening even in the Western world. If in India we say that, since we do not classify marital rape as one of the concept, so here we say sexual harassment is increasing, but in Western societies you will find marital rapes are increasing. That means what? Ultimately, violence against crime is increasing across space and across time. So this is a continued challenge, because even after having domestic violence act, okay, prohibition of domestic violence act, sexual harassment act, prohibition of sexual harassment at workplace act, then you even have dowry prohibition act. So, sorry, dowry will take another point. So you have so many acts against the violence. Okay, you also have immoral trafficking act, you also have basically IPC sections to punish the people who are engaging in such heinous crimes like rapes. But still, people, this challenge was then also and today also. Like Nirbhaya happened, then after that that Hyderabad girl case happened, then you also know that Shakti Mill case happened, then basically that Unnao case happened. That means what? Even though Nirbhaya happened, you basically formed Nirbhaya guidelines, you formed Nirbhaya fund, you gave the Vishakha guidelines, nothing is happening, because there are still challenges that we are facing today. Okay, then you come to the fourth point. So we'll just erase this. Yeah, so then you've talked about employment, you've talked about education, you have talked about the one more point, which was infanticide and feticide. Now you talked about dowry. Talk about dowry. How basically, dowry is coming from the fact that you're considering that women are weaker than men, and that women are not like women are not very you can say valuable, like you can say that they are not valuable enough, and that is why you need to pay dowry, because you're actually shifting burden from one family to other. This whole patriarchal concept of dowry, if you see, then it has been continuing in the past, because dowry was there in the past also and in today also. Okay, even after having dowry prohibition act, you will find that dowry is taking place not only in North India, it's happening in South India also. Okay, you can say obviously it's an Indian concept, but in the West obviously dowry is not there. But if you have to compare against spaces compared within India, no, and say that dowry, now what has happened is even the tribal cultures, okay, which were not so much the sphere of dowry, because there women were given equal status. Now because of mainstreaming of their own culture, they have also started adopting the practices of dowry. That is actually the reverse socialization, wherein instead of adopting good practices, they are adopting bad practices of the mainland society. And this has happened to many tribes, okay, specifically in Rajasthan and MP and UP. Many tribes, okay, many tribes, where bride price, where brides used to be so valued that you're giving an entity which can take care of your home, take care of your family, take care of everything. So they used to give bride price. That means there used to be basically somebody is marrying their women, the other family where women is getting married to, that used to pay a price to the boys family, to the girls family, for giving them a valuable like entity, someone who can take care of their family. But now the concept has reversed. Now they are actually practicing dowry, and this is what is the continued challenge. Even after Dowry Prohibition Act, we see that these challenges are still remaining. Okay, then similarly you will find political participation of women. Okay, so only in the Rig Vedic time we saw basically women participating in sabhas and samitis, etc. But after that, starting from the later Vedic period, we saw women not getting included in these politically important decisions, and this has continued even today. Okay, even after, you will find that here you can write that how political participation of women is only 12% in Indian society. Okay, that means only 12% parliamentarians, MPs that sit in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. The total number of MPs are 550, somewhere around 550 plus, so you can say 200 something. So out of those 700 plus MPs, only 12% are actually women. That means somewhere around 65, 68. So what are you seeing? That political participation is still not 50%. Okay, and political participation is not increasing. Now that has gone from 12 to 14%, but this is a very menial rate of increase, right? Even after 33%, so we introduced a law of basically reserving 1/3 seats, or 33% of women, 33% of seats in these urban local bodies, rural local bodies, for women. So we saw that the women fulfilled those seats, but then came the concept of panchayat patis. What is this panchayati patis? That means women is sitting on the position because she is mandated to, but she is not empowered. She is not taking decision. Who is taking decision? Her husband. Okay, so her husband, who is not in position, who is not basically given authority, he is actually taking the decisions for the women, for his women. It can be mother, sister, or basically his wife also. And in some cases, you might have found case studies where the women is the sarpanch, still she is sitting, okay, So basically in Sarpanch you have 4 other punches. So this is how the whole punch system is. And even though she's a Sarpanch, okay, she's still so fearful and she has not acclaimed her identity that she's still sitting on the ground, while because she considers herself not to be equal to men, and these men are sitting on the chairs. Okay, so now what is this? This is basically non-political empowerment. What is it? That women are still not politically empowered. Okay, so this is a continued challenge from the past till the present, and this happens across time and space. Okay, whether in mainland, whether in northeastern region, whether in basically North India, South India. And here you can also find that political participation has not been great even in the western countries. And here I will urge you to give this example. While we say that South Asian countries of India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, whatever you want to call them, that they are not they are not very developed, or they have certain challenges related to women, but you will find that these are the countries which gave the world first times women prime ministers, women president. Okay, Indira Gandhi, then Benazir Bhutto in Pakistan. Similarly in Bangladesh you have Sheikh Hasina. But can you tell me any name of prime minister or can you tell me president from the United States who is a woman? Answer is no. Even though these societies are actually more developed, more advanced, okay, you say they are more socially developed, but still you will find it's not these societies who ever gave presidents the highest position to women. That is how deeply this patriarchal mindset runs in the society, whether it be a developing one or be a developed one. Okay, so this is about the political participation. And here, see, I am just giving you 5-6 points, but there are many challenges for women. Okay, so challenges for the women can be in the form of even the you can say the political is done in the sector of health also. You can write now that how maternal mortality rate is still so high. Okay, then you will find that the nutrition status is so bad, and it is said in India that women eat the last, so whatever is left over they eat that. They do not claim basically the food, because they want to first feed their family and then they want to eat. And this has led to anemic problem. Like 50% of our women in the reproductive age are actually anemic. They have less iron in their body. So what is it telling you? It is telling you that health still remains a continued challenge for women, be it time or be it space. Even this is the case across the world, where women are actually you can say less nutritionally empowered than men. So this is how you write your answer. Okay, and I'm telling you again, mention these case studies, because without case studies this is like giving you pravachan. So you don't want to give pravachan to the person who is checking your paper. You want to only tell him the facts. Okay, and in the end you will write that the time has come that we eradicate these challenges and make society more equal. And in the end, that means you have basically ended the question on a positive note, that we need to work on those challenges and ensure that women get their right place in the society. Okay, so you're not talking about Indian society, you're telling just a society. It can be Indian, it can be Western, it can be anybody. Okay, but women need to get right position. So this is how you will start your answer. So I'm hoping that you might have got the complete picture of how do you write an answer, and I hope that you are writing them also, because I'm telling you again, coaching classes are not going to beat anyone. I mean, I don't know, have you ever seen the model answers also? If you see the model answers provided by many of these coaching classes, they have written some stats, they have written something, but they have not actually made flow diagrams. They have not given you how can you write questions in 2 different forms and still get the same marks. So this only will come from the courses that you join. Okay, and plus Pramesh is actually bringing you this course to break the myths existing in the UPSC circles, that there is like only one way of writing answer, which is wrong. Now we will come to the question number 13. So question number 13, that means it belongs from question number 11 to 20. That is, it's a 250 words or a 15 marker question. The question is, explain how the foundations of model world were led by American and French Revolution. This is the only question, like one single question that came from the world history topic. And world history, trust me, has been a topic which has been neglected in the past by UPSC. So they asked, like I think 2013 or 14, they asked like 5 questions from world history, but after that they've reduced their questions from 5 to 4, 4 to 3, 3 to 2, and now it is 1. So since the past 2-3 years, you will realize that they have been asking only one question from world history. So I've seen people leaving this topic, but I don't agree with this, because UPSC can change pattern. This year they asked 6 questions from sociology. They've never asked this question from sociology, but they asked because they changed their pattern. So you can never know when will UPSC change the pattern, and then you will regret that shit you left an entire topic. So do not leave entire topic, at least study the basics. And American and French Revolution is something that you start your world history preparation with. The first thing you study after Renaissance, Reformation, and Industrial Revolution is the American Revolution. And because American Revolution was sort of a reason for French Revolution, because the French people who participated in this American War of Independence, they took back the spirit of independence with them to France, and then you will find in France also revolution started. So this is how American and French Revolution become the part of your starting preparation of our world history, and you should know the answer of this question. Now question number 13 is asking you to explain the foundations of the model world which were led by American and French Revolution. So here, see, if you don't want to write introduction, you can skip it, but I generally don't agree. If you have to skip something, skip the conclusion if it is not needed. But don't skip introduction, because introduction is something, see, if you have to know about me, I need to introduce, right? I always give this introduction slide, because how will you know that who's teaching you is qualified or not? How will you know that that person has qualified themselves, prelims, written, mains, gone till interview, so that you know that their methodology of writing paper is actually working, and you need to learn that practical methodology, not what is being given and what might work. Okay, there are methodologies given by people who have never attempted prelims, and they're still teaching you how to attempt prelims. This is wrong. You can teach a syllabus, but you cannot teach how to attempt prelims, because you have never you have yourself not attempted prelims. So this is the idea of how, you need to scout for the best material on the internet. But leaving that aside, what we'll do is we'll write introduction, body, and conclusion like what we are writing. So in introduction, what you'll write is, you will write that how American and French Revolution, okay, they form the first of those, you can write that they are the first of those major events that happened in the world history that actually reshaped the course of the world history. Because if these events would have not happened, you would have realized that Britishers are actually empowering the entire globe. Okay, it was these revolutions that challenged the power of the Britishers, that challenged that you are not the only one who actually can, who because of the power, because of technology, because of weapons can overpower us. It's our spirit of independence that can drive us and that can actually make you lose in the battle. Okay, so that is why I'm telling you that in introduction you need to mention this, that how American and French Revolution, they basically changed or shaped the course of the world history, and they were like the landmark events in the world history. And then in the body you will explain that how they led the foundation, and here only you can write, and they basically led the foundations of the modern world. So that what is happening, you in the introduction are only setting the pretext of what you're going to write in body. So this becomes your linking line. This linking line is very important. You cannot write something in introduction and then ultimately start with something else in body. Need to interlink it now. Just write one line interlinking them, so that examiner feels okay, there is a continuity in the answer. Otherwise it feels like somebody else has written introduction, somebody else has written body, which is not the case. So here this becomes an interlinking line, and after that you write about in the body. So now what you will write in the body, you will write about the foundation of how basically American and French Revolution, they actually led the foundation of this model world. So see, what is a model world? First of all, you need to have that idea. Okay, so that examiner knows that what is a model world that you're talking about. Model world is where everybody has liberty, where people are equal, they have fraternity, okay, where they have, you can say, liberty of what? Liberty of thought, liberty of speech, liberty of expression, liberty of faith, liberty of belief, liberty of worship. And this all I have taken from preamble. And this is where your polity helps you. That is why I'm telling you, do not go subject wise. So what you will write is, basically this is a foundation model world, right? What is a model world? Where equality of status, equality of opportunity for men, women and transgenders, of status for what? Lower caste, upper caste, everything. So you are basically trying to establish an equal world. Similarly, fraternity. What is fraternity? Basically you are trying to create unity, so that people are more united than divided. Then what is a model world? Wherein you will find it, apart from these values, people have dignity. Okay, people are basically allowed to, you can say, people are allowed to actually follow their heart. And so whatever American and French Revolution changed in the society, you basically write it here. What is a model world? Where there is democracy, okay, where people's will is the highest, where people rule themselves It is people, rule of the people, by the people, for the people. And this is how you will actually write it. Because, and then you know how who gave this quote of rule by the people, democracy is of the people, for the people, by the people. It was Abraham Lincoln. Okay, the same Abraham Lincoln who actually abolished slavery in America, and he basically came 100 years after the American War of Independence that took place in 1770s, because then took the American Civil War in 1870s, wherein Abraham Lincoln was the founder of this Republican Party, the same Republican Party whose head is right now Trump, like who's basically whose presidential candidate is Trump. So Mr. Trump, sorry. Okay, so this is like the GK part of it, but are you getting the whole point of how what you have to write in the body? So you have to write about the model world, and this model world concept, that you should be clear in your mind what you need to write. Otherwise, you'll get confused. So what you will do is it's asking you to explain how that led to the foundation. So you will explain that how American Revolution showed that it is not basically the country with the weapons that ultimately wins the war. It is the country with the spirit of the people that wins the war. And this is the model world, wherein you are saying that a country with high technology, high powers may not be able to actually overpower the spirit of humans. This is what the model world is. Okay, then secondly, you can write how American Revolution, okay, gave this concept of rule of law. And it was the first one, it was the first revolution, or the first country where after revolution you will find the constitution was written and it was established. American Constitution is the oldest constitution in the world. It's the first written constitution, and also the constitution that gave people Bill of Rights. And this is what is a model world, because you are giving people rights, you are giving them certain rights that they can command, and they have to command from the government if the government is not providing them. Okay, constitution, because constitution creates the boundaries, it sets the philosophy of constitutionalism. It tells the people that you will never be ruled arbitrarily, you will always be ruled according to this constitution, the framework that has been made. And this is what is model world, because model world, there should be no arbitrariness, there should be set defined rules, and there should be rule according to that. Okay, similarly you will write that how basically in French Revolution the ideas of liberty, equality and fraternity got established. Okay, how basically in French Revolution we know, right, the whole point of basically the king not basically giving the, in French Revolution what happened, there were 3 estates, remember, there were 3 there was a divisional sorry, the French society was divided into 3 classes. Okay, like this, they were like workers and peasants, and they were like the king and the nobles, and then there was the aristocratic class. So here what was happening, all the benefits were given to the first and second class, and all the burden was put on the third class. Okay, and they were not even given liberty, they could not choose anything, they could not buy anything. And it is basically the French Revolution came around only when this third estate rose in power and demanded liberty, demanded equality of status, equality of opportunities, demanded basically the demanded an equal power accord with the even estate 1 and estate 2 in deciding the matters of the state which actually impact them. So this is how French Revolution established the ideals that should be running in the modern world, ideals of liberty, wherein we are giving individual freedom to people to decide on the things that are personal to them. See, liberty is not absolute. Liberty is basically relative, wherein you cannot say that my liberty will hurt your liberty, that I can do anything but it might even harm you. No, this kind of liberty we are not talking about. We're talking about liberty that is empowering you as well as me, that is personal to me and that is personal to you, and you can do whatever you want in your sphere, I can do whatever I want in my sphere. Okay, this is how French Revolution established this idea of liberty, equality and fraternity. And how fraternity, because it was the people who came together and fought. Even though estate 1 and estate 2, like the 2 states, okay, the 2 classes above, they had, I think, hardly 10% population together, but it was they were actually overpowering the 70 to 80% downwards population. And it is only the fraternity that rose among this third estate that finally they fought with the first and the second estate. Okay, so this is how French Revolution established a model world where it said that there should be no class divisions in the society, okay, where everybody should get equal benefits. Then similarly, what did they teach you? They teach you the ideals of democracy, because in both places you will realize ultimately what came was republic. Okay, republic means ruled by the people. Okay, that means basically where the public offices are held by the people. It's not the monarchy which is running. So that is why ideals of democracy, ideals of republic, okay, they got established. And these ideals, if you see, um, they became the values that people wanted even in the Arab Spring. Remember 2011 Tunisia, where all this Arab Spring was started, and it led finally to the countries like Syria, Lebanon, that crisis that we are seeing today, Tunisia, okay, even in Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, all these places were impacted because of this Arab Spring, where all the people suddenly realized that they are done with the monarchy. They want republic offices, and the slogan they said was, "We want democracy." And this is the foundation of model world, which was led by American and French Revolution. That democracy is the thing that you need. Republic is the thing that you demand. Okay. Similarly, what are the other ideas that were set by the American and French Revolution? Sorry. That lives matter. Lives matter. Okay, whose lives matter? Even the lives of the lowest people. Okay, it does not, like, they wanted to create about a revolution where they wanted everybody to participate. So they told that if a country has to remain independent, it's everybody who has to ultimately participate. And this is what led to the foundation of model world, because in model world if you leave one section from this whole struggle outside, that section is going to remain outside for entire life. So they taught you that how a country who's wanting independence, who's wanting to do something, has to take everybody together. Okay, so I've given you like 5-6 points. If there are any other points that you think you can write, you can also mention in the comment box. And then in the end, you will conclude how American and French Revolution were not limited in time and space, but they became inspiration for many other revolutions that happened simultaneously in the world. For example, Irish revolutions, Spanish revolutions, and also Indian Revolution. Because the ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity, justice, rule of law, constitution, bill of rights, all democracy, republic, they all came from these basically revolutions, and they kept on inspiring other revolutions happening in the other countries, finally, who were wanting to achieve independence. And this is how beautiful you will end, by telling you that how American and French revolutions were not limited in time and space, but they were far ahead of their time, because they kept on inspiring the generations to come. So with this we end this question also. Now we come to the question number 14, which is again 250 words and 15 marker question, which talks about what is water stress and how and why does it differ regionally in India. Now I will actually leave you with this question to write, because we have discussed almost 10 questions, almost half the paper, and now you should be in a position to at least attempt these static questions. This is what? This is a static question, and I hope that you are actually able to write it down. At least write the basics, and just as a hint, this question need to have stats. Okay, I'm not asking you to write stats, I'm telling you that it needs to have statistics, stats or statistics, in the sense of how is the water availability, what do you call as water stress, and then only you can define that since this is a water stress, so basically it is we can see it, we can feel it, and this is how it is differing regionally. But without statistics, if you write this question, you are going to get less marks. Okay, with this we end this particular session. Thank you.